So for part 2 of the video, now we're just going to go ahead and add some simple wheels. This will actually be a pretty quick video, but just to show you, we built our chassis in the first video, and now we just want to add some simple wheels that maybe look a little bit cool to our little car here. Also, one of the things I like to do whenever I'm working on a car model or something simple is into my shading settings, I like to come down to wireframe on shaded, right? It just helps me see as I'm building my model, not only the shaded view, but also the wireframe as well. I just kind of feel that that's important, especially to see where those edges are on your model. Really, really helps out. And again, I also like to turn my grid off from time to time, and that's under Show Grid. You can turn that on or off as needed. I'm going to turn it back on for now just because we're going to have the wheels and we want to position this car correctly. But sometimes if I'm doing a lot of heavy detail, I don't like to have the grid in the way. So just a heads up on that. If you need to turn that off, that's under the Show Grid settings. Okay, so creating wheels, right? Super, super easy. This is probably the easiest thing you'll do now. You know, obviously the chassis was maybe a little bit more complicated, but obviously that's a really, really low poly model. But this next part's super, super simple. So usually what I do whenever I create a wheel for my models is I come up to my cylinder right here and create a cylinder. Now I can't see it because it made it right in the middle of my model that we can see here, but that's okay. I'm just going ahead and move it out to the side of my car right about there. And I go to my rotate tool, and in my channel settings, I'm going to go ahead and if you'll see if I start rotating my model, it changes the Z axis. I'm just going to go ahead and change that to -90, or you could do 90 either way. 90 or -90. We'll just go with 90 for now. Turn it 90, just like a wheel, right? And I'm going to use my scale tool to use the mill scale and scale it up, right? About the size of my wheel. Now, to make it fit perfectly, I'm going to go into my side view and look at this wheel well so we can position this cylinder perfectly in that wheel well. So to do that, I'm just going to hit my space bar, go into my quad view here. I'm going to find the side view of my model, which is right here. And we can kind of see a representation of our car on the sides, exactly what we want. But I can just move this into position. So that actually looks pretty solid actually from where it's at. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in position. Now I do feel that maybe the wheel is a shade too big, or I need to drag the wheel more up into the car like that to kind of give it a little more clearance. And so we can modify our car to kind of fit that. But what I'm going to do is leave it here for now, and then we'll come back in and start fine-tuning the car so it fits our wheel a little bit better. Typically when you're working on cars too, sometimes you can start with your wheel and then use the principle of wheels where 6 wheels equals the size of a car. You can do that. I kind of like to just go with it right away. It's kind of up to you, especially if you're doing fantasy stuff. Really, the sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want. If I was doing more of a production car, I'd create my wheel first and then use 6 wheels as the length of my car and then kind of design it from there. Another thing you can do too is, we didn't really get into this when we were making our chassis, but an alternative to making the chassis is if you design your wheel and you've got your wheel shape on the side, you can actually come up to mesh tools and use the create polygon tool to basically draw the outline of your car around your wheels, etc. And you can get some really interesting shapes by doing that, right? But I'm not going to do that right now, but I just wanted to show you can easily do that if you wanted to do that. I like using the box method because you get like a nice complete core, and it's good for game models and stuff like that. But anyways, I'm going to put my wheel kind of where it needs to be in the wheel well right there. And again, we might do some modifications to that. And I'll duplicate this later to use for all the wheels. We'll use one wheel for everything down the road. So I'm going to hit spacebar again and go out of my side view. Go back into my main view, and we'll go ahead and side scale the wheel down to the size of our wheel. So we'll go something like that. And you know what? Actually, the wheel might not be so bad now that I look at it. I'll put it into my car right there. And we can really jam that in there right about there. It's kind of like more if it's like a sporty SUV or something, maybe like the Tesla truck. Okay, so now that I have my wheel in place, we can start smoothing out the wheel. Now the wheel already, the cylinder has 20 divisions. I think that's actually perfect for a wheel to start, especially a game wheel. It gives us a nice smooth look to it. Um, and it's still low poly, but I think it'll work just fine. But what I like to do is just using my edge tool, I come to the edge of the wheel and I'm just going to double click this entire ring around the edge of my wheel right here. And with that ring selected, I'm also going to double click this other ring right here. So I want to make sure those two edges are selected on my cylinder. And then I'm going to go up to Edit Mesh, Bevel. Okay. Now when the bevel mode is on, you'll see it gives you this little node where you can change some of the values. So under the fraction settings, we can actually change the size of the bevel as well as how many divisions. So I'm going to give it probably about a size like that, and then my segments, I'm going to say 2. That'll give me that extra line in there that just kind of makes that curve a little more complete. Now the more you make on those segments, the more smoother the side of that bevel will be. But for a game model, you can kind of get away with 2, especially a low poly one should look just fine. All right, so there's my wheel shape. That's looking pretty good. Now we got to kind of carve out the center of this wheel right here and go from there. I also want to go out of, I'm still in my symmetry mode, so I'm going to go back to my modeling toolkit and I'm going to go ahead and turn that off for this particular feature. Now in here, I just need to select, I can just shift select all of these little triangles right in the middle of the wheel right here. And this is just kind of the easy way to do it, but you could use paint select and there's various other ways. But I don't want to get into selection options right now to confuse you too much. So just select all those faces right in the middle of the model right here. And then I'm going to go to scale. And just like when we do our extrusions, we can also do scale extrusions on our model. So with shift held down, hold down shift, you see how it says extrude, and hovering over the center scale, so I scale in all directions. I'm going to scale inwards on my model to kind of get the width of the wheel. So let's do it right about there. Go to low profile, right? And now with my directional tool, I'm going to grab my X handle, hold shift, and I'm going to extrude inwards on my model. Right, that'll give us kind of the shape of where our wheel well needs to be. Right, and you can pull that in as much as you want or out as much as you want. Totally up to you. For now, I'm just going to go right about there. And right now, I'm just going to mess around with, I won't get into crazy rim construction, but you can get away with, scaling in and maybe pulling it out a little bit. Maybe pulling it back in a little bit, right? And I'm just extruding and moving, right? I'm extruding again, and maybe I'm pulling that one out. Maybe I'm extruding it out a little bit. And, I'm just doing a really simple, just kind of extrusion of what a rim could possibly be, right? I'm just extruding down as I go. Maybe I'll extrude inwards a little bit more. Maybe we'll do one more for the center. And we'll just extrude this guy out and maybe just scale it in, right? So I just extruded, pulled, moved, extruded all the way just into the center of the wheel to kind of get some kind of an interesting look, right? I back out, right? You can see that actually looks kind of cool. Now, if I wanted to add some extra detail pieces to this wheel, I could go ahead and do so on the wheel as needed. But I think that for this particular assignment, just a simple wheel like that's totally fine. Don't get anything crazier for now. Now with my wheel selected, and again, when you're working on wheels, you don't need to worry about the other side of the wheel. Especially in a game, we're never going to see that. We're only going to see this. So we're only going to worry about that outside of the wheel. I think that looks pretty good. This almost looks like a car from like Total Recall or something. Kind of cool. All right, so I'm going to grab that wheel, and again, I'm just going to duplicate these. So I'm going to say Control D, and I'm going to pull that wheel down to my backside right here. Put that right there, and I might need to actually bring that up a little bit. Again, that's where like some subtle modifications might have to happen on the model itself. I'll grab that guy, and then I'm going to take both wheels. Now I have both wheels selected, and now this is going to be kind of interesting. So you want to make sure that the wheels are in the exact same spot on the other side of the model. Now you could just duplicate them and rotate them around and stick them into place, right? You could do that. Or an easier way is to mess with your transforms. So right now with these models selected, you'll see I've moved it around, right? It started in the center as a cylinder and I've moved it around my scene. You see, as you do that, just to show you really quickly, you see all those values right here? They start changing, right? Your X, Y's, and Z's, right? And your rotation values, like all those change when you start moving these models around. Undo and just get that back to position, right? So what we want to do is zero out those values so we can just duplicate this model onto the other side. The same with my back wheel, right? It has all those values too. We can go ahead and zero out all those values so we can duplicate it over the other side. And this is kind of an interesting function. It's called duplicate special. So if I click my front wheel here, you see I've got in my channel settings all of these little options. That's all this input stuff that I've done. That's fine. Keep that for now. But this right here, we want to make sure these are zeroed out, right? So to do that, I just come up with my wheel selected. I'm going to go modify, freeze transformations. Okay, you'll see when I do that, see all the values now are all zeroed out. My scale is set to 1, which it should be. If it was 0, we wouldn't see it, but 1, it's the right size. But everything else is zeroed out, so it's using the local transforms of that object as its zero space, right? But we want to actually change the transform values of this particular wheel to be the center of our scene, so we can duplicate this wheel exactly to the other side in the same spot where this wheel is. So you see right now it's using the center of my model. I'm going to go ahead and click the wheel and say modify. Instead of freeze, after freeze, I'm going to say reset. And it's going to move that pivot to the middle of my scene. See, here it is right there. Now that it's in the middle of my scene, I can use what's called duplicate special to duplicate this wheel to the other side of my model. Now to do that, I just have my model selected. Now again, I froze my transforms and I reset them. Freeze first, then reset. You don't want to reset first because that'll move your model. You want to freeze first, then reset. My transforms are in the center. Now I'm just going to go edit. You'll see this option under duplicate. We have duplicate and duplicate special. Now the little options box is what we want on duplicate special. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And it's going to give me this little options box, which actually it's on my other screen here. Let me just go ahead and grab this. Give me a second. Hold on. There we go. Okay. So with this duplicate special options box, you're going to notice you have different values. Now by default, it's probably going to look like that. 0, 0, and then a 1 on this bottom row. Now these columns correlate to the X, Y, and Z values in your scene. We want to flip this wheel because it's on the X axis, right? We're actually in the positive X axis. We want to flip it over to the negative axis, right? And even if it was on the other side in the negative, we still want negative. We wanted to go the reverse way. So to do that, what we're saying is, hey, scale the model in the reverse from where it's at. So instead of scale of 1 in the X, we're just going to say -1. We're just going to do exactly the opposite. We're going to scale it the other way. So 1 unit the other way. Remember, its transforms in the middle, so now it'll use that as its scale point. So if I say -1 and then say apply, boom, you see immediately it gives me that same model on the other side. But the only thing it does do is it keeps that negative value in its settings. So if we were to actually bring this into Unity or a game engine, we might not see this rendering property. It'll actually look inside out because of that negative setting. So to fix that, we just go up to modify, freeze transformations. That'll fix that. So now we've got a wheel on each side, right? Same with my back wheel. I'm just going to click that. I'm going to go modify, freeze, modify, reset, get that center point. Then I'm going to go edit. Now, because I already set it in duplicate special, I could just click it again, but we'll just go to the box one more time just to show you, right? So I've got the duplicate special options. I've set to -1 in my X, Y, and Z values, just in the X. You don't want to go in the Y or the Z because then it'll start going in other places. We just want it in the X. I'm going to make a copy, parent, in the X. Number of copies, we'll just do 1. You could do more if you needed to. And I'm going to say apply. All right, so I get that wheel in the back. There it is. All right, with that, I'm just going to modify, freeze. All right, so now I've got my car, I've got the wheels, you know. If I wanted to, I could actually model some more stuff to kind of fill in, or I could come to the bottom of my model now, and let's just maybe grab this part and just scale it down to kind of fill in the bottom of the model, like the undercarriage, right? So let's say there's our undercarriage we're working on. Maybe that goes down a little bit farther or something like that, right? I'm gonna give it a little bit more to it. We also have this little bumper that we did around the model, so now I can grab that, and let's go on the sides, and we'll just grab maybe that side right there. I can even pull that down if I needed to too, right? So you can really do some cool stuff just by kind of just messing around and tweaking some of the values. So we've got a pretty good looking vehicle right now. We've got our wheels in there. Next, we'll just add some last minute details on here. I'm thinking maybe like a little spoiler on the back, and I don't know, maybe some futuristic elements we'll add on here and maybe mess with the shape a little bit more, and then it should be good to go.